Rockingham County news and information. Mike Moore Media.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the February edition of At Home with ADTS, a monthly show where we discuss topics that may be of interest to older adults and their caregivers, as well as exploring the programs and supports offered through our organization. I'm Cathy Powers, the Executive Director here at ADTS, and my co-host, as always, is Asheley Cooper, our Director of Adult Day Services. Aging, Disability, and Transit Services, or ADTS, has been in Rockingham County since 1973, and our goal is to support people to achieve optimum health, well-being, independence, and participation in the community, with our primary focus being on older adults and adults with disabilities. We do this through 8 core programs that touch around 17,000 people annually, but we certainly can't do this alone. We rely on our community for support, both time, talent, as well as resources. And so we always like to start our show by thanking our community partners who are helping us to expand our reach in the community and meet the ever-growing needs. Thank you to Pelham Transportation, Carolina Apothecary, Wells Fargo, Home Trust Bank, CJ Medical, Sparks Oil, the Rockingham County Community Foundation, the Rockingham County Arts Council, Colonial Funeral Home, the Episcopal Church of the Epiphany, JDK Automotive, Wilkerson Funeral Home, Annie Penn Hospital, Eden Rotary, BB&T, Reedsville Rotary, Woodmont United Methodist Church, and Plaza Mini Storage. We thank you all for your continued support. We also want to give a special thank you to the United Way of Rockingham County for their longtime and generous support of our Meals on Wheels program. United Way of Rockingham County brings together local people to help raise local dollars and meet local needs, and we thank everyone who has participated in this year's campaign. Now I'm going to turn the program over to Ashley, who's going to give us a couple of announcements and introduce today's guest.
Thank you, Cathy. We want to remind our listeners that every March we have March for Meals, which is a program that supports our Meals on Wheels program. On March 22nd, 1972, President Nixon signed into law that established a national nutrition program for seniors 60 and older, community referred to as Meals on Wheels, which most people are pretty familiar with. Since 1987, Meals on Wheels has been delivering hot meals to homebound older adults across Rockingham County. Last year alone, our team of volunteers helped ADTS provide more than 41,000 meals to homebound seniors in our county. Throughout the month of March, ADTS is proud to participate in March for Meals awareness campaign, and we are thrilled to once again partner with our local businesses to raise money to benefit Meals on Wheels in Rockingham County. The funds stay right here in our community and go to provide meals, friendly visits, and safety checks for our homebound seniors. Visit our website for more information, or you can call Julie Talbert, our development officer, at 336-394-1313 if you'd like to learn how to get involved or make a donation. Tickets are also on sale now for our March for Meals kickoff stew. It's $6 per quart, and it's Reggie King's famous recipe, which Cathy, I hear, is really good.
That's what I hear.
I know, I'm excited to give that a try. I may or may not have bought several tickets. This event will be on Saturday, March 2nd, with pickup starting at 1:30 and ending at 3 p.m. To purchase your tickets, please visit our webpage, ADTSRC.org, or like us on Facebook, or give Julie a call. Now I'm happy to introduce our guest, Flavel Collins, Community Relations and Development Coordinator at Hospice of Rockingham County. Nice to have you.
It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. How long has Hospice of Rockingham County been in operation?
We have been around since November of 1987. We served the first patient, and we've been taking care of folks here in and around the county since then.
Wonderful. And what is the primary focus of hospice?
Our primary focus is comfort. To take care of patients with a life-limiting illness. Medicare says that a hospice-appropriate patient has an expected prognosis of 6 months or less if their illness follows a normal and expected course. Sometimes I say it's a very well-educated guess. But typically our patients are able to remain at home, but wherever home is, if that's a skilled facility, an assisted living facility, retirement community, group home, wherever home is, that's where we can care for them.
That's wonderful.
And, it's quality of life. We really can't do anything to extend quantity, but we will do everything we can to add as much quality.
Right, that's wonderful. And I wasn't aware that y'all also serve individuals in skilled nursing facilities.
I wasn't either.
Yes, that is part of the benefit, and we
great.
can take care of them in skilled facilities.
That is wonderful, because, they definitely need a little bit more attention and care.
Well, and it's truthfully, it's not just the extra care for the patient and the support for the family, but we're extra sets of eyes and ears for the staff that are taking care of the patient.
Absolutely.
So it helps a lot of different folks.
Sure, absolutely. So what are some of the services that you can provide individuals as well as families?
Well, our team approach says that we have, number one, we have a case manager. And to me, hospice care is some of the best case management anyone could ever have. But you have a nurse that's your case manager. If you want services, we have hospice aides that can come in and help with activities of daily living, bathing a patient, changing the patient's bed, things like that, maybe shaving the patient. We have medical social workers on staff. They're available not just for the patients, but support for the caregivers as well. We have volunteers. If someone would like a volunteer, this offers the caregiver a little respite time as much as it is support for the patient. They know that if the volunteer's coming by, they're going to be there for a couple of hours. If they need to get out and run some errands, or maybe just on a day as beautiful as today is, just get out and go sit in the sunshine for a little while. But again, they know that the volunteer will be there with the patient. We have medical directors. All of these folks work in conjunction with the patient's own physician to map out and execute that care plan.
Oh, wonderful. So it really is truly a team approach.
It is. And one of the unique things about hospice care, in addition to the care that we provide and the support that we provide in the moment, we follow up for a full 13 months with the caregiver after a patient has died.
Oh, wow. That's
So
really...
that support continues for a good while.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So one of besides to talk about hospice, also was wondering if we could talk about advanced care planning, specifically how to start that conversation, how to have the conversation, and some of the resources that are available for individuals who are wanting to try to navigate that process.
And maybe even when to start the conversation, because I think we're in a similar boat with you, Flavel, in that no one really wants to talk about getting older.
Right.
But we're doing it every day.
Right.
And nobody
If we're
wants,
lucky.
Right. And nobody wants to necessarily talk about death. And so that advanced planning process, what does that look like? When do you start to have those conversations?
Yesterday. Not to give a short answer, but truthfully, you can't start early enough. You can't start too early.
Right.
For myself, I've had a healthcare power of attorney and a living will since I was 41 years old, which was more than a few years ago. And it came about, I was getting ready to have surgery, and I thought, it's time. I mean, why not? Go ahead and do it. And then I'm walking the walk in addition to talking the talk when it comes to advanced care planning. So you don't have to wait till you're 65 years old till you're thinking about retirement. You're wondering or worrying about nursing homes and assisted livings and things like that. Go ahead and start the conversation.
Right.
And sometimes I think the earlier you start it, not in the middle of a crisis. It's hard to plan in the middle of a crisis. Start having the conversation. And sometimes things will spark. It could be that something has happened to a close friend and they had a stroke and wound up on a ventilator, and it could be that you hear somebody say, well, that's not what I want. I wouldn't want that. Well, okay, there's a little opening. There's the door's open just a crack. Start the conversation and really have an opportunity excuse me, to find out what someone wants and does not want, which is equally important.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a conversation where you talk all the nuts and bolts the entire time. It's just, it may be sometimes better just to have little nuggets of the conversation.
Sure, and it can be very conversational. You don't have to, like you said, you don't have to start with item 1 and work your way through item 25.
Right.
Just talk about things. And a lot of stuff will come to light just in having the conversation.
Absolutely. I know that my mother pulled me aside and said, I don't want any extreme measures. And I said, okay. And I was like, no problem, we will definitely observe that. So I was talking to my brother a few days later, and I said, well, Mom and I kind of had a conversation about end-of-life care, and she expressed that she doesn't want any extreme measures. He's like, well, then she needs to put that in writing because I will do whatever it takes to keep her alive.
Right. There you go. Case in point.
Yes, exactly. So, I went back to her and I was like, we need to do this. We still haven't done it, even though, but we keep having the conversations about it. And I think that's helpful, especially when we were presented with a situation that we had to kind of make a decision.
Right.
And I think it was helpful for us anyway that we were able to make a decision on her behalf, that since she had kind of expressed some things and what we needed to do, and didn't seem so overwhelming at the time.
Right. And did that not give you tremendous peace of mind knowing you were doing what she wanted?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And also we do a caregiver support group for folks with caregivers who are loving somebody who has dementia. And quite often they're riddled with the guilt as the disease has progressed. Is this really what they wanted? Or
exactly.
And and how they wish they would have had that conversation before things kind of took a turn. Before they weren't able to have that conversation.
Right.
So I think things are always difficult too when you're in crisis. Because
absolutely, you can't. You're not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure, and it's difficult to make decisions when you're in the heat of the moment.
Absolutely. I was in preparing for this interview. I was reading a statistic that said 90% of people, make sure I get this right, say that they say talking to their loved one about end of life care is important, but only 27% have done it. And so it just clearly shows that people are thinking about it, but they're just not relaying it, or they're not sure how to relay that. So, so one of the things that I thought we might talk about is 5 Wishes, which is a tool that kind of goes through some of that advanced care planning. It gives you an idea of some things to think about, and it doesn't make it so scary.
Right,
so to
and
say.
it truly is a wonderful planning tool for families to use.
Yes, and it's something they can pick up online. And is it something that y'all also provide as well?
We do. We have their free of charge if somebody wants to stop by the office and pick up 1 or 6 or whatever they need. And if they can let us know if they've got a few questions ahead of time, if they'll let us know, we can make sure one of our social workers, who are sort of our gurus at the office, that they're there to talk with them about this.
And
as
where's
well.
your office located, Flavel?
It's 2150 NC Highway 65, Reedsville.
Okay.
We're 2 miles west of the old courthouse and post office.
When your cell phone service goes out, you're almost there.
You're there, yes.
So true, yes. So true, yes. So the first wish says, the person I want to make healthcare decisions for me when I can't make them for myself. So what exactly does that mean? You're not able to, and who's that person? That seems kind of vague.
Well, and one thing I think I've heard people say, well, I don't want a healthcare power of attorney because I don't want them to be able to put me in a nursing home. Well, first and foremost, the healthcare proxy is only going to come into play if you can't speak for yourself. What if you're in a car accident and by the time somebody gets to the ER, you are on a vent, or you're unconscious and you can't tell anyone what you would want and don't want? That's when it comes into play. If you are alert and oriented and in your right mind and can speak for yourself, it really doesn't matter what your healthcare proxy says. And you should give a lot of thought to whom you would want to speak for you if you can't. Sometimes it's better if it's not a family member or not a close family member, and they maybe can be a little more. Just like you said, your brother said, well, I want to do everything. Well, that might not be what the patient would want.
Right, absolutely.
So sometimes having someone with a little more objectivity about the situation can help. My healthcare proxy is not blood related to me, so that I think that does make it a little bit easier sometimes.
Sure, and just proximity, do you think proximity to you, if you choose an individual who lives in Massachusetts and you live in North Carolina, or should you choose somebody who kind of lives close to you, or does that matter?
I don't know that it really matters, and that could be a case of maybe you've got 2, because you can have a backup if someone. Now, for instance, I had an aunt that lived about 5 hours away at Virginia Beach, but I was her proxy and reasonably could get back and forth if something needed to be done.
Sure.
But sometimes that is something to think about. How quickly could they get to you if something can't be handled over the phone?
Right.
That would be something to think about too.
Okay.
And you mentioned that healthcare proxy only comes into effect if the person cannot speak for themselves. So what about in a situation where they get better? So maybe you need the healthcare proxy to step in and make decisions, but then things turn around. At some point, does it transition back over to the
patient
individual?
can make the decisions, absolutely.
So it doesn't mean forever.
Right, and the proxy itself can be in place forever. That person
Right.
can be named, but until the person for whom you're a proxy can't speak and make decisions, it really has no bearing on it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the second wish says, my wish for the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. And I know it goes into a lot of detail about life support treatments. And what exactly does life support treatments mean?
Well, and that means different things to different people, I think.
Okay.
I think when you say, well, they're on life support, they immediately think a ventilator.
Right.
They're mechanical breathing.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be a tube feeding.
Okay.
It could, and when you talk about extreme measures, do you mean CPR, that's an extreme, life-saving measure. So there's a lot to think about. There's more than just one thing when we talk about life-sustaining treatment.
Okay.
So does the 5 wishes document go into that detail, or is it just kind of an explanation of this is what you need to consider about life-sustaining measures?
It actually, you can get into some nitty-gritty, and there is space in here to write down.
Okay.
If you want to specify. There are sections where you can check, I want, if I'm close to death, I do want to have life-sustaining treatment. I don't want anything, and if it's been started, I want it stopped.
Right.
If there's a chance for a meaningful recovery, then yes, I want something done, but when that point comes and the physician feels like there will not be a meaningful recovery, then I want things withdrawn. So you actually can specify.
You can put some details to it. Okay.
Yes, because that's good to know there's some flexibility there as well. Because again, I think people think, I'm going to use this at a time where I'm not going to be living much longer, when actually you might.
Right,
So-
right, because things can change.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so-
Absolutely. So the third wish covers comfort, and you've kind of mentioned comfort already. Why is comfort important to discuss in relation to end-of-life care or advanced care planning?
Well, to me, first of all, especially towards the end of life, there are so many things that may be out of your control. To be able to say, yes, I would like my favorite music, or yes, I would like some essential oils, either diffused or massaged or whatever. So I think that's still a little bit of control to be able to let folks know. Again, is it important to you, if you're a man, to be clean shaven? To some it is, most definitely it is. Some it doesn't matter. And even I think back years and years ago, one of our hospice volunteers, she had a patient, and it was very important to the little lady. She was one of those that her nails had always been polished and taken care of, and she really couldn't do it for herself anymore. So the volunteer would typically, when she came to visit, would spend part of the time painting her nails, and something we might completely take for granted. I'm sure I do. But it was very important to her, and to have that done for her meant the world.
Sure, absolutely.
You just made me think of the person-centered planning, and that's something that we try to implement in all of our programs here, that takes that important for into consideration, or important to, I'm sorry. From a clinical standpoint, I think it's really easy for people to slip into that it's important for. It's important for you to have 3 balanced meals a day, and important for you to have a bath. But very rarely do we take into consideration the important too.
Yes, and there is a difference. You're
Yeah,
right.
and so if it's important to that person to have their bath at night before they go to bed, as opposed to in the morning when we're sending in a CNA, because that's the time that they're available and we're working, that's a really important distinction, and it has tremendous impact on quality of life for individuals. So it's so valuable that you're taking all those small things that we take for granted,
Right.
From an important for standpoint into consideration.
Exactly.
And also, I think, reiterates the people who, as you are nearing the end of your life, that there's still value to your life, and that there's still importance, and that it's just not a shell. There's still there's an
Sure.
individual there that needs to be taken into consideration. So, absolutely. The fourth wish says, my wish for how I want people to treat me. So this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just discussing. And it really seems to cover dignity. And how important that is at the end of the life, not only for the individual who's dying, but also for the family as well.
Right.
So what I like about a lot of things I like about the 5 wishes document, but one of the other ones I like about it doesn't only cover what do you want when you can no longer speak for yourself. And you know, when I remember when my grandmother was passing, that we all just held vigil around her bed, and then they came in and said, well, why don't you play some music? And we're like, oh
yeah,
that seems nice. And you immediately just changed the whole atmosphere of it. And you know, and we all ran home and got her favorite music and things like that, and it just really seemed to change, be a big change for her as well as for the family.
I'm sure, and I've always heard that hearing is the last sense that we lose. So
That's what I've heard too.
That can be, the music part can still be to the very end, especially important.
Yeah, definitely.
And music is so important in people's lives anyway,
Yes.
as far as, you know, stimulating the memories, and
Yes, I've
so
seen,
closely tied to.
you know, studies with dementia patients that if you fill an iPod with music from their younger days, or teens and early 20s, that that really resonates with them, even when maybe nothing else does.
Perfect time to plug that we have the Music and Memory program available at the Leaf Adult Day Health Program.
Yes, absolutely. Can you cover some of the other things that they discuss on that fourth wish about how they want to be treated? I thought they were really interesting.
Yes, well, one says, I wish to have my hand held and to be talked to when possible, even if I don't seem to respond. That can be very important to some people. It might not be important at all to someone who isn't what we would call a touchy-feely person.
Right.
That doesn't make any difference, and it might not even be pleasant. I mean, it might not be something. But, I wish to have members of my faith community told that I'm sick, and they can be asked to pray for me and come visit. Others might not want a lot of visitors.
Right.
And that's fine. That's their wish. And so let's go with that. I want someone to be with me when it seems the end is near. There are those that don't want to die alone. So, and again, with hospice, hopefully your family's with you, you're at home, you're in a good, safe environment, and people can be with you, and that is something that would be possible. I wish to have pictures of my loved ones near the bed, and with us in the hospice home especially, it's not unusual when a patient is brought in, then the family comes in and they've got 8 by 10, to put around so that the patient can still see those. So, and again, a lot of these things may be little to us, but it can mean the world when you're on the other side of that fence. So, for some, it's they want to be sure that they're always clean and they've always got on clean, fresh clothes and things like that. So, and a couple of years ago, I can remember being in a conference and they were talking about things that become important to patients, and someone said, "Well, truthfully, when a person is admitted to hospice, from that moment on, the focus should always be what is important to you from here on out."
Right.
And that will become important to us. So,
Sure. Which is why I love hospice. That belief. That belief. Absolutely. Because I think a lot of times as you end your life, you lose control of it. And I feel that, that's why I love hospice so much, is that they give you back some of that control.
Right.
And I think that's really important to individuals. It's definitely important to me.
I've been told I'm a little of a control freak myself, so it's very important to me.
Yes.
We've never heard that, Flavel.
So the fifth wish is my wish for what I want my loved ones and my healthcare team to know. And that brings me to telling your doctor. I think a lot of times people leave that piece out.
Yes, that, and truthfully, especially if you do the 5 wishes document, in addition to your family, your caregivers, do let because some physicians have no idea that you don't want extreme measures, that you don't want to be put in the hospital and have everything in the world done for you. So your healthcare provider needs to know as much, if not more so, than some others.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's a really good point, because I think it also helps the doctor realize how much more they want to do, or allows them to have that return conversation of, well, we can keep going, or we can maybe stop and look at quality and comfort over some other measures.
And knowing where the patient stands on things may make having that conversation between the physician and the patient that much easier.
Right, absolutely. So at the end of the 5 wishes document, what would be the next step? You've sat down with your loved one over the course of several weeks and kind of have these conversations. Is the goal is that at the end of it, you take it and it's all inclusive?
And notarized.
Okay.
And, if it were me, I would have several copies made so that people have them. And, if things change, you can revisit it and, again, maybe have some more conversations with people about, I thought this is what I wanted, but I've kind of changed my mind about CPR, or I changed my mind about dialysis, or, whatever. Because, things do evolve. And especially when you're younger, when you make your line of think, what you want may change, what's important to you can change. So it's okay to change things around and let people know, I have changed my mind about this.
Absolutely.
So once the form's notarized, it's a legal document?
As far as like the healthcare proxy,
Gotcha.
that part, and the living will part.
Okay. Awesome.
Wonderful. I think is there anything else you think that we should know?
Well, I would invite everyone. Matter of fact, I was working on this morning. We will actually hold an advanced care planning workshop April 16th, which is National Healthcare Decisions Day. That will be from 10 to 12 at the Wellness Center inside Lane's Family Pharmacy over in Eden. Again, it's free of charge. We'll have an elder law attorney there who has great information and can get more into the nitty-gritty of a healthcare proxy, a durable power of attorney, and folks understanding that those aren't the same thing.
Right.
Because sometimes I have heard people say, I thought about doing one, but I don't want her to have access to a checking account. They're two different documents.
Right.
They do two different things. So Steve Arrington is his name. He's a great elder
He's
law attorney.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll have Megan Cole, who's one of our social workers, there to get more in depth about the 5 wishes document. We'll have hopefully Beth Hinsley with organ donation. She does a great presentation, and we'll have a notary there if you decide at the end of the 2-hour workshop that you want to go ahead and execute something. Carol will be there with her notary stamp, and you can get that taken care of that day.
It's awesome.
Wonderful.
All right, April 16th, 10 to 12 at the Wellness Center at Lane's Pharmacy in Eden.
What time does that start?
10
10 to 12. All right. Thank you, Flavel. We appreciate
Thank
all the
you.
information. And if anybody would like some more information about hospice, you can reach them directly at 336-427-9028. If you'd like information about ADTS programs and services, you can always visit us on our website at adtsrc.org or give us a call at 336-349-2343. We thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you can join us again next month when Ashan Parker will be with us to discuss the 2018 State of the County Health Report. Thank you.